Did you know that millennials hold 25% more wealth than their parents did at the same age? It's true, but there's a catch that could wipe out all those gains overnight. Meet Jake, a 28-year-old who turned $5,000 into a $250,000 net worth in just 5 years. His secret? It's not crypto or stocks, it's something much closer to home. Literally, you might think millennials are finally catching up financially. Since 2020, millennial net worth has grown faster than any other generation. On paper, it looks like they're getting ahead, but dig a little deeper and you'll find a different story. Despite this apparent wealth boost, many millennials are still struggling to make ends meet. How can this be? It all comes down to the type of wealth they're accumulating. Millennials are carrying a heavy burden of debt. Student loans, credit cards, car payments, it all adds up. Even with their growing net worth, these debts are still weighing heavily on their finances. But here's where it gets interesting. Even with all this debt, millennial net worth has gone up. So what's going on? The answer lies in what we call illiquid assets. These are things that have value but can't be easily converted into cash. For millennials, the biggest illiquid asset is usually their home. In fact, a huge chunk of millennial wealth, we're talking about 75% or more, is tied up in real estate. That means while their net worth might look good on paper, they can't actually use most of that wealth for day-to-day expenses or emergencies. This brings us to a crucial question. If millennials are richer, why do they feel broke? The answer is what we call phantom wealth. It's wealth that exists in theory, but doesn't translate to real financial security or freedom in daily life. Imagine having a valuable asset, but not being able to afford groceries. That's the reality for many millennials. They might own a home that's worth a lot more than they paid for it, but that doesn't help them pay their bills or save for the future. This creates a bizarre financial paradox. Millennials might be technically wealthier than their parents were at the same age, but they often feel less financially secure. They're rich in assets, but poor in cash. To really understand how this plays out in real life, let's meet Jake. His story perfectly illustrates the millennial wealth paradox. Jake's story is about an incredible risk that paid off beyond his wildest dreams. How did this 28-year-old turn $5,000 into a jaw-dropping $250,000 net worth in just 5 years? Let's find out. Meet Jake, a typical millennial, drowning in student debt. He was barely keeping his head above water financially when he made a decision that would change everything. With just $5,000 saved up, Jake decided to buy a fixer-upper house. It was a huge gamble, way riskier than what most financial advisors would recommend. Jake was putting all his eggs in one basket. If the housing market took a nosedive, or if the house needed more repairs than he expected, he could lose everything. And remember, he was already struggling with debt. Taking on a mortgage and renovation costs could have pushed him over the edge financially. But here's where things get interesting. Jake was using a powerful concept in real estate called leveraging. With his $5,000 down payment, he was able to control a much larger asset, the entire house. This is like using a small amount of your own money to potentially make gains on a much larger investment. Now you might be wondering, how did this risky move actually pay off for Jake? Well, it all comes down to timing and location. Jake bought his house in an area where the housing market was about to take off. Over the next 5 years, home prices in his neighborhood skyrocketed. As the value of his house went up, so did Jake's net worth. Remember, he only put down $5,000, but he was benefiting from the appreciation of the entire house value. This is the power of leveraging in action. Jake's success wasn't just about rising home prices. He also built equity by paying down his mortgage each month. And don't forget the sweat equity he put in by fixing up the house himself, increasing its value even more. The result? In just 5 years, Jake's net worth ballooned to $250,000. From being in the red with student debt, he now had significant wealth, at least on paper. But here's the thing, Jake's story isn't unique. It's part of a bigger trend we're seeing with millennials and real estate. Many young adults who managed to buy homes in the last decade have seen their wealth grow dramatically thanks to this housing boom. But as we'll see, this kind of rapid wealth growth comes with its own set of challenges and risks. Imagine waking up one day to find your net worth has doubled, even tripled. For many millennial homeowners, this is their reality, but this windfall comes with a catch that splitting an entire entire generation in two. Let's break down the numbers behind this real estate boom. Homeownership is driving the wealth surge for millennials. From January 2020 to January 2023, the median home price jumped from $206,300 to $359,000. That's a massive increase in just 3 years. Some millennials are riding this wave to wealth, while others are struggling with unaffordability. It's creating a huge divide in this generation. On one side, you have those who bought homes early. They're watching their net worth grow faster than they can count. On the other side, those who missed out are struggling to even get their foot in the door. Why is it so hard for many millennials to buy homes now? It's a mix of high prices and rising interest rates. The numbers paint a pretty grim picture. About 18% of millennials think they'll never own a home. Never. And can you blame them? Home prices are 30% higher than they were at the start of 2019. It's like watching a train leave the station and realizing you can't afford a ticket. So, we've got millennial homeowners sitting on a gold mine of wealth while their peers are left behind. But here's a question that's keeping economists up at night. Is this wealth growth sustainable, or are we watching a bubble that's about to burst? Experts are starting to raise red flags about the real estate market. There's concern that home values might be artificially inflated, and if that bubble pops, it could spell disaster for those millennial homeowners who think they're set for life. This brings us to the dark side of Jake's success story. Sure, his net worth looks impressive on paper, but as we're about to see, paper wealth can be tricky. It might make you feel rich, but it doesn't necessarily translate to financial security. And in Jake's case, it might be setting him up for a fall he never saw coming. Remember Jake, our millennial homeowner with a hefty net worth? Well, his financial situation isn't as stable as it seems. Even with $250,000 to his name, Jake's wealth is mostly tied up in his house. He can't easily tap into it for bills or emergencies. It's like having a giant piggy bank glued shut. Jake's not alone in this predicament. Many millennials face similar challenges with their finances. A new trend called doom spending is making things worse. Some young adults are spending over $400 a month on non-essentials as a way to cope with economic anxieties. They're living for today, but at what cost? This spending habit is causing real problems. Millennials are putting more on credit cards and saving less for the future. Kevin Mahoney, a financial planner, points out that many feel pressured to enjoy life now due to economic uncertainties, but this mindset could be setting them up for future financial struggles. Now, imagine what would happen if the real estate market took a nosedive. Jake's net worth could vanish overnight. His house might suddenly be worth less than his mortgage. He'd be underwater on his loan with no safety net. This isn't just a hypothetical scenario. High inflation and rising interest rates are making it harder for young adults to plan ahead. They're forced to spend more on daily expenses, leaving little room for savings or investments. The psychological impact of living through economic ups and downs has taken its toll. Many millennials have adopted a short-term financial outlook. It's a risky approach that could leave them vulnerable when the next crisis hits. So what can we learn from Jake's story? Having a high net worth on paper doesn't guarantee financial security. True stability comes from liquid assets, emergency savings, and diverse investments. It's time to look beyond paper wealth and focus on building real, lasting financial resilience. So what's the real takeaway from Jake's story? True financial security comes from having a mix of assets you can easily access and use. Think cash savings, diverse investments, and some real estate too. It's about building a financial foundation that can weather any storm. Take a moment to look at your own finances. Are you relying too much on one type of wealth? Maybe it's time to spread things out a bit. Start building up that emergency fund. Look into different investment options. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, even if that basket seems to be made of gold. Remember, financial success is about creating a balanced approach that lets you build wealth while staying flexible and secure. That's how you turn paper wealth into real financial freedom. And that's a lesson we can all take to the bank.